Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're sort of zeroing in on the U.S., specifically Friday, May 2nd, 2025.
Yeah, we've got this news briefing, a real snapshot covering quite a bit.
Right. Economy, trade, politics,
Yeah.
social movements, the markets too.
The whole gamut.
And the idea is to, pull out the key insights for you, see how these different pieces might fit together without getting totally overwhelmed by all the details.
Exactly. It's really about trying to understand the story behind the headlines from that one day. What forces are at play? Where might things be heading?
Okay, let's jump right in then. The economy. We saw, 177,000 jobs added in April? That seems pretty solid.
It does, especially with unemployment holding at 4.2%. It's surprisingly resilient, maybe.
Resilient, despite what
Yeah.
global shifts.
Yeah, exactly. Despite some of the, wider economic headwinds people have been talking about. And interestingly, the report suggests growth was particularly strong in services.
Okay, so maybe a shift happening there.
Could be. Or perhaps it just signals that the impact of some global factors is maybe a bit delayed hitting the Main Street economy.
Gotcha. Okay, shifting gears to trade. Big news here. President Trump's Liberation Day tariffs.
Right. That's a 10% baseline, but then a much higher 54% specifically on Chinese goods.
Wow, 54%. That's significant. But at the same time, China's saying they're still open to negotiations.
Yeah, that's the contrast, isn't it? You have this really strong protectionist move, these tariffs, which could cause ripples, through supply chains and international business. But China's response, at least publicly, is more measured, stating they're open to talks. Maybe that reflects their own need to keep trade flowing, maintain growth.
So keep the door open, even if just a crack.
Something like that. Appearing flexible might be important for them, too.
Yeah, okay, politically, a couple of big announcements, too. First, renaming Veterans Day.
To Victory Day for World War I, yeah. Timed with the centennial, obviously.
What's the significance there, do you think, beyond the name change itself?
Well, renaming a national holiday, it connects the present to a specific historical narrative. It's a symbolic act, framing history in a certain way.
And then the other piece, the executive order cutting federal funds for PBS and NPR.
Right, citing concerns about bias. That move really touches on fundamental questions about public media, its independence, the government's role.
And how that impacts the information landscape available to people, to you listening.
Exactly. It feeds into those larger debates we often see.
Meanwhile, on the streets, it was May Day. We saw protests in major cities.
Yeah, quite widespread. The main themes seem to be labor rights, immigration policies.
And those recent federal layoffs we mentioned earlier.
And the layoffs, yes. It's interesting how these different concerns kind of came together.
What does that convergence tell us?
It suggests potentially a broader sense of unease, maybe.
Yeah.
Mobilization driven by a mix of economic worries and social issues. And the fact it was happening in multiple cities points to it not being just a local thing.
Right, not isolated pockets.
Yeah.
Okay, finally, let's look at the markets and money. Global stocks actually went up.
They did. Seems like optimism, maybe cautious optimism, around the possibility of U.S.-China trade talks starting up again. A direct reaction to that tension we just discussed.
So the markets are focusing on the open to talks part, not the massive tariff part.
It seems so, for now anyway. Markets hate uncertainty, but they often react positively to any sign of potential de-escalation,
Well, mortgage rates. Anything happening there?
Pretty stable, actually. The average 30-year fixed rate was holding around 6.7 over 9%.
So some steadiness in the housing finance world, at least on that day.
For the moment, yeah. Though that's always something to watch, especially with everything else going on with the economy and trade.
Okay, so let's try to pull this all together. We've got a job market that looks, surprisingly okay.
Resilient.
But happening at the same time as these major new trade barriers going up, particularly with China.
Right. Then you add in significant political announcements about national identity, about media funding.
Plus, widespread protests about jobs, rights, immigration.
And financial markets grabbing onto any bit of positive news about trade talks, while mortgage rates are just kind of holding steady.
It's quite a mix, isn't it?
It really is. And what's fascinating, I think, is how interconnected it all potentially is. Trade policy affects jobs, which can fuel social movements. Political decisions shape the news you see. Markets react instantly to all of it.
Which leads us to our final thought for you, the listener. When you consider all these things happening seemingly at once, the tariffs, the job numbers, the protests, the political statements, what underlying forces do you think are really the most powerful drivers shaping where the U.S. is headed right now.
Yeah, what's the biggest current pulling things along? It's definitely something we're thinking about.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.